Police curfew imposed island-wide from 6 p.m. today to 6 a.m. on Monday. Number of COVID-19 cases in Sri Lanka rises to 70. Legal action taken against the patient who concealed details at the Ragama Teaching Hospital. Court order issued to people living in areas that come under the purview of 9 police stations in Hatton to refrain from leaving their houses for 14 days. COVID-19 affects economy. Rupee depreciates against US dollar and stocks plunge over 6%.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. An island-wide curfew was imposed at 6 this evening and will go on until 6 a.m. Monday. Now, DIG Ajit Rohana said that strict action will be taken against people who violate these rules during this time period.
The law will be strictly enforced during the curfew period. While we expect the general public to refrain from being outdoors, we also urge everyone to maintain a distance with their family members or those who live in the same house. Those who have been requested to self-isolate themselves should do so and limit contact with their family. We will take legal action against those who violate quarantine rules and regulations. Curfew has been imposed and we request everyone to stay inside their houses.
Meanwhile, the Department of Railways has decided to suspend all night mail trains and long-distance trains until island-wide curfew is lifted. The Road Development Authority announced that vehicles on the expressway will be suspended after 6 p.m. today. Director of the Highways Maintenance and Management Unit, S. Opanayaka, said, after 6 p.m. today, vehicles for essential services will only be allowed on the expressway. Sri Lankan Airlines, issuing a statement, urged its passengers to produce their air tickets and passports to security forces and check points to reach the airport during the curfew period. Meanwhile, the Hatton Magistrates Court today ordered 70 residents of areas coming under the purview of 9 police stations to refrain from leaving their houses for 14 days. The order was issued following a request made by the health officer in Ambagamuwa and the public health inspector in Nuwara. According to the court order, the entry of vehicles carrying tourists to these areas have been barred along with public gatherings and political rallies. Hatton Magistrate J. Raman Troxy also ordered to disinfect tourist hotels, public washrooms and buses in these areas. In addition, the magistrate also ordered to refrain from using trolleys and handcarts at supermarkets. These orders will be in effect in the Hatton, Muskelia, Norwood, Nallantanya, Bogavantalawa, Kinigathena, Norton Bridge, Watawala and the Dimbulapattana police divisions until the situation returns to normalcy. 20 people, including 3 children and 3 women who had violated the curfew restrictions, have been arrested by the Sri Lankan Navy. The Navy said that the suspects have been arrested in the Battalangunduwa area when they were about to travel by sea from Puttalam to Mannar. The suspects have been identified as residents of Kalpitiya and Chilav.
We were informed that a motorcycle parade had taken place in Dambulla. The police carried out investigations into this. 2 people, including the mayor of Dambulla, were arrested over the incident today. They were produced before courts. It is regrettable that the heads of state bodies are engaging in these activities.
The total number of COVID-19 patients tested positive for the coronavirus in Sri Lanka has now risen to 70. As you can see behind me, the majority is reported from Gampaha, then comes Colombo. Speaking about the age distribution of the patients tested positive for the COVID-19, majority, which means 42.6% of the patients are between the age of 41 to 50 years. And majority of them are male, 78% of the patients are male. Speaking about the issue here in Sri Lanka when it comes to the coronavirus, it was 69 earlier, now it has risen to 70, and the medical authorities have given strict instructions to prevent from engaging in public gatherings, to always stay at your own residence. Now, a group of doctors and staffers attached to the Ragama hospital have been sent for self-quarantining. Deputy Director of the hospital, Dr. Sarat Premasiri, expressed the following views.
A person from the Jaira area arrived at the Ragama hospital complaining of a chest pain. Despite being questioned by hospital staffers, he denied having contact with COVID-19 patients or those who arrived in Sri Lanka from overseas. Therefore, we admitted him to a general ward and treated him for the chest pain. Upon inquiries made by doctors during the second day, a relative of the patient stated that he had attended a party with a group of people who had arrived in the country from Italy. We then transferred the patient to the isolation unit and conducted tests on him. He was then tested positive for COVID-19. It is unfortunate to note that the specialist doctors, nurses, patients and visitors who had arrived when the patient was in the normal ward had been exposed to the virus. This is a very unfortunate situation. Despite awareness being created by the government and the media calling on people to inform us if they had any contact with affected people, the public is not extending their cooperation in this regard. If this patient had informed us that he had maintained contact with a group of people from Italy, we would have not treated him in a general ward. If that had happened, we could have prevented the others from being exposed to the virus. Following this incident, we have asked the staff members to undergo self-quarantining for 14 days. The public should realize that as well. The patient is receiving treatment after he was tested positive for COVID-19. However, we filed a case against him at the Wattala Magistrates Court. At the same time, we will take legal action against those who abetted the patient in concealing his sickness.
Issuing a statement, Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, also the head of the task force appointed with regard to the COVID-19, Lieutenant General Shavindra Silva had this to say.
2,731 people were quarantined at 17 centers in the country. 27 foreign nationals from 12 countries are also among them. From the 10th of this month until today, only 22 people who have undergone quarantine were tested positive for the coronavirus. There is no need to create unnecessary fear over that. Among the 22 patients, one had arrived from UK while the rest had arrived from Italy. 19 of them were at the Kattakandu quarantine center while the rest were from the quarantine centers in Pune. More than 1,000 people are in the quarantine centers. There are 2 patients who share a room at the center. The other 19 patients were from 5 divisions in the Kattakandu quarantine center. There were 21 other divisions in the center. However, none of those people being quarantined there were affected. This shows that the quarantine process is being carried out properly. There are no major problems regarding the quarantine center. The problem is with the people who had arrived from overseas. The government is undertaking several measures such as imposing a curfew to mitigate the spread of this virus. Everyone, including the President and the health sector officials, are committed towards achieving this goal. Doctors and the hospital staff are making sacrifices to treat the affected patients and those who have been admitted on suspicion. By doing all of this, they expect to stand in a united manner and to defeat the coronavirus. We will definitely win this challenge. In order to do so, all Sri Lankans must fulfill their responsibilities by undergoing self-quarantine or by adhering to the advice of health officials. If they act in such a manner, I feel that this challenge can be won within a short period of time.
සුවන් නිරෝධනයකට හෝ ඒ ආකාරයට ක්‍රියා කළොත් මම හිතන්නේ අපිට ඉතාමත් සුළු කාලෙකින් මේක ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also issued a special statement on the current situation of the country.
We did not reduce our attention towards your lives. Be it Sri Lankans living here or overseas, we will take steps to protect the lives of everyone. The necessary arrangements have been made to bring back those who had gone on a religious pilgrimage to Dambadeva. That is because it is our responsibility. We took steps to quarantine patients and those who came into contact with an affected person. We were able to quarantine thousands of people and provide them food, water and medicines because of our concern towards them. It doesn't have to be told that carrying out that process is very difficult for us as a country. Irrespective of the magnitude of the pandemic and the difficulty of the process, the government is taking measures to alleviate the problems of the people, taking into consideration the safety of children, We declared a holiday for schools and universities. We limited flights and gradually suspended all arrivals. We undertook these measures by considering the situation in the country and across the globe. This is how we will function in the future as well. As I address you, an island-wide curfew is in effect. We did not want to impose a countrywide curfew even while fighting the war against terrorism. However, due to the irresponsible actions of certain individuals, we had to take this decision. We took this decision for the safety of you and your children. If there are any inconveniences caused due to this, we express our regret over that. At the same time, we will make the necessary arrangements to meet your daily needs, be it medicine, food, fuel. There is no need to create unnecessary panic. Our government will not conceal anything from the people. Information regarding patients and the trend of the disease is being provided efficiently for the protection of all of us. At this time, when the world is facing hardships, I request everyone to act in a thoughtful manner. If you follow the advice given by doctors, we can overcome this pandemic within a short span of time. Let us stand together at this time. We are a nation which has overcome bigger challenges. I believe that we can overcome this challenge as a nation.
ශක්තිය තිබෙන බව මට විශ්වාසයි.
At around 9 this morning, the government informed that a curfew will be imposed island-wide. Now, right after the information, following the announcement, large groups of people were seen purchasing commodities, essential goods and fuel in several parts of the country.
The Colombo Fort Railway Station, Central Bus Stand and the Colombo Private Bus Stand were crowded with people this afternoon.
உடனடியாக சுய தனிமைப்படுத்தலுக்கு உட்படுத்தப்பட வேண்டும். குறைந்தபட்சம் 1 மீட்டர் தொலைவில்
ආසාදනීරීමේ වැළකීම සඳහා ඒ පැතිරීම මැඩපැවැත්වීම සඳහා සියලු මහ ජනතාව විසින් මෙම අවස්ථාවේදී වගකීමෙන් ක්‍රියා කළ යුතු අතර ක්ෂණ පිළිබඳව අවධානයෙන් සිටිය යුතුයි.
Minister of Transport Services Management Mahinda Amravira arrived at the private bus stand in Colombo Fort to inquire about the situation.
A curfew is introduced to limit transportation. So why is everyone queuing up at petrol sheds and trying to travel to their hometowns? The government is expecting the people to stay at their respective places and not to travel in the country.
Our correspondent said that residents of several areas had begun returning to their hometowns following the announcement of the curfew. Long queues were witnessed at fuel stations, shops and banks as well.
This was what was seen today. People rushing back to their villages and to their homes. Now, despite what anyone says, it is unfortunate to see the situation that the people are in with the current turn of events. People are actually helpless with how things are taking place in the country. Now, to speak further on this matter, we have on our studio spokesperson of the Government Medical Officers Association, Dr. Samantha Ananda. Doctor, you just witnessed the footage that we aired on our news. What is your take on that?
Yes, Asra. Now, the whole idea of implementing this curfew police curfew is to limit the movements of the people. Unfortunately, today we saw that mass gatherings are happening in the common areas like bus stands and the railway stations and so on and so on. Actually, what really we wanted was to restrict the movements of the people so that the transmission of the disease will be minimized, because we have come to a stage where the community spread has started. Corona is now spreading one to one. Therefore, we have to restrict the people's movement, people getting touched with coronavirus infected personals, so that we can limit the number of cases.
Doctor, what about the personal responsibility? Shouldn't we put our personal health first?
Definitely, this is a personal responsibility. You know, individually, we need to take the responsibility to be at home and restrict our movement as much as possible. From that, we will be protecting ourselves as well as we will be protecting others from getting this disease. Therefore, this is of course a personal responsibility.
There are several information about a possible medicine to cure this disease, the virus. What is your take on that?
Yes, Astra. Now there are certain informations are circulating in the Facebook and other medias that there are certain drugs has been invented to control this, but actually there are no clinical evidence as such to prove that certain drugs are can be used to treat this coronavirus. So far, there is no scientifically proven drug to treat this disease. Therefore, we can't rely on the informations that we are getting from various sources. We only can rely on the WHO recommendations. Still now, WHO has not recommended any treatment for this coronavirus.
Doctor, what is the situation in Italy? We saw the numbers increasing during the past few days and they're actually struggling now. What went wrong?
So now if you take Italy, what has happened in Italy? Now they took it lightly. That is what we perceive from the informations that we gather. Now Italy as a country, they took it lightly. The government reactions were late, and the people, the way they reacted was very light. They did not take it seriously. So therefore, today they are facing a huge problem in a country to control this.
Thank you, Dr. Ananda, for joining us on our news tonight. Now, the number of dead in Italy surpassed those in China, which again reported no new cases in the outbreak's initial epicenter. Now, the death toll soared as Italy announced another 427 fatalities yesterday, taking its total to 3,405. Since the outbreak of the virus, China has reported 3,245 deaths until today. An island-wide lockdown was imposed in Italy on the 12th of this month, and all citizens were requested to stay indoors. And the island-wide lockdown in Italy has now been extended until the 25th of March. Taking a look at the international arena when it comes to COVID-19, according to data from the Johns Hopkins University, the coronavirus pandemic has claimed the lives of more than 10,000 people globally. It took 3 months for the first 100,000 cases, but only 12 days for the next 100,000 cases. The number of people infected worldwide is nearing 245,000, with most cases in China, followed by Italy and Iran. The total confirmed cases of COVID-19 globally stands at 246,275, while 86,036 have recovered from the virus.
France reported 108 more deaths over the last 24 hours, bringing the total number to 372. California issued a statewide stay-at-home order on Thursday for its 40 million residents, and Washington warned Americans to return home or stay abroad indefinitely, as the number of coronavirus deaths in the country hit 200. Britain has asked 65,000 former nurses and doctors to return to work and will deploy final-year medical students to fight the coronavirus health crisis. Malaysia will deploy its army starting on Sunday to ensure the public stays at home through the 2-week lockdown meant to contain the coronavirus pandemic. The number of coronavirus cases in Taiwan jumped again today, with 27 new infections, taking the total to 135, with a second death also reported as the island fights to contain a rise in imported cases. The health official leading Germany's fight against coronavirus urged people today to keep their distance to curb the pandemic, but said it was up to the authorities to decide whether to impose a curfew to force them to do so. The number of German cases of COVID-19 rose by 2,958 overnight to 13,957. The number of fatalities rose by 11 to 31. Meanwhile, YouTube will reduce its streaming quality in the European Union to avert internet gridlock as thousands of Europeans constrained by the coronavirus outbreak switch to working from home. The decision comes after the European government urged streaming platforms to cut the quality of their videos to prevent internet overload. Videos account for a substantial part of internet traffic data. Meanwhile, in Russia, the Kremlin announced today that Russian President Vladimir Putin has not been tested for the new coronavirus and does not need to undergo such a test because he is healthy and has no symptoms. Oil and gas companies are cutting spending plans in response to the new coronavirus and a push by Saudi Arabia and Russia to ramp up output. Oil prices rose today as the world's richest nations poured unprecedented aid into the global economy to stop a coronavirus-driven recession, and US President Donald Trump hinted he may intervene in the price war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. Stock markets rebounded from some of their recent huge losses today, pulling further away from 3-year lows as central banks and governments pledged masses of cash to reduce the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic.
The total number of COVID-19 patients here in Sri Lanka has risen to 72. Meanwhile, the chief prelates of the Askari and the Malwata chapters and the Archbishop of Colombo expressed the following views.
Now we should stay inside our homes instead of traveling outside and meeting others, considering the safety of us and the others. This is what should be done now. The disease will spread if we continue to engage in trips, conduct public meetings and meet relatives. That cannot be prevented. If we act carelessly in a manner that results in everyone being affected, then we will run out of medical supplies to treat the patients. Doctors will not be able to treat patients. If such an unfortunate situation arises, our country will be affected. We can restore this situation to normalcy if every one of us fulfills our responsibilities. I have seen photos of how army officers had given their beds to the quarantine centers and had slept on the floor. They slept outside under unfavorable conditions because they wanted to help the people voluntarily and provide a bed for those being quarantined. Their efforts should be appreciated. Therefore, respect the services rendered by the army and the security forces.
Issuing a media release today, the Foreign Ministry said that a meeting was chaired by Secretary of Foreign Relations Ravinath Ariyasinghe, along with the attendance of ambassadors representing the Western Hemisphere, as well as reps from the Ministry of Defence, Police Department, Department of Immigration, Airport and Aviation Services, Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau, Civil Aviation and Sri Lankan Airlines. Now, the diplomats present drew attention to the continuing difficulties faced by their nationals presently in the country on account of negative reactions experienced by tourists on some occasions from both owners of tourist lodgings as well as sections of the general public. Now, the Sri Lankan agencies present emphasized that public measures would be taken to ensure Sri Lanka's traditional hospitality to foreign nationals in these difficult circumstances. Meanwhile, the National Health Trades Union Forum convened a media briefing today.
The Institute of Infectious Diseases, the hospital sector, health authorities and the MOH officers should function properly. We are witnessing that it is not taking place in a proper manner. There are certain mechanisms which can be implemented to control an epidemic. There are special kits for this. They have not been supplied to the relevant places. Instead of that, a presidential task force has been set up. When health officers are facing such a situation, we see that only some officers have undergone training and have an awareness of the situation. The others should be given proper training. It is important to implement an effective plan with the intervention of the government and the Ministry of Health through the National Institute of Infectious Diseases. We know that doctors have adequate knowledge to intervene into this situation. The trade union is also part of this. However, they have not approached the trade unions yet. They might have approached a few which are close to the government. The government has obtained the assistance of army officers in several areas. There is no problem in that. The assistance of the army should be obtained. There is nothing wrong in obtaining the assistance of army officers to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. However, they must come under the purview of the doctors. The army should be involved in executing the plans of the bodies which are involved in the process. We do not see such an effective plan in place. There can be rifts in the current process. The National Institute of Infectious Diseases must be held responsible over this. Army officers are required to work in line with the plans of the National Institute of Infectious Diseases. Entrusting the army with the responsibility of mitigating the spread of the virus is unsuitable. This is not an effective system. The assistance of others should be obtained to implement the plan of the health authorities. There is nothing wrong with that.
විධිමත් ක්‍රමයක් නෙමෙයි. සෞඛ්‍ය කාර්ය මණ්ඩල සම්බන්ධ වෙලා කරන වැඩපිළිවෙලට අනිකුත් අය සම්බන්ධ කරගන්නවා.
Co-cabinet spokesperson Minister Bandulu Gunawardena convened a media briefing in Colombo today. Now, during the media briefing, journalists questioned the minister as to why a media briefing was convened during the prevailing situation.
රටේ සමහර දේශපාලඥයන් ඔවුන්ගේ දේශපාලන වාසනාවෙන් මාධ්‍යම පවත්වනවා. නමුත් මේ වගේ වාතාවරණයක මාධ්‍යම මේ විදිහට පැවැත්වීමක් අවශ්‍යයි. දේශපාලන අරමුණක් වෙනුවෙන්
I think it is not fair to hold media briefings to gain political advantage. We have discussed this matter with the Director General of Information as well. We hope to inform all important matters to the media via fax in the coming days.
තමයි බලාපොරොත්තු
උත්තර අවශ්‍ය නම් වීඩියෝ ක්ලිප් එකක් හදලා මාධ්‍යට ගන්න පුළුවන් ඉතුරු මහකට උත්තර දෙන්න ඔබතුමායි උපදෙස් දුන්නේ නැත්නම් මේ මාධ්‍යයෙන් කියන්නේ මාධ්‍යයෙන් කොරෝනා හදන්න දෙයක්.
මේ තීරණය ආවේ ශනිකවනේ. The decision was unexpected. The decision to impose curfew was announced at 9 a.m. today. By the time curfew was declared, the briefing had already been convened. Please do not worry.
වැඩි අවධානයක් යොමු කරනවා. අද දිනේදී මේක උනේ අපි කැඳවලා තිබුණා.
Now, here are some of the views expressed by co-cabinet spokesperson Minister Bandulu Gunawardena during the media briefing today.
දැන් මිල ස්ථායි කරන වැඩපිළිවෙලක් යෝජනා කරලා කැබිනට් පණ්ඩේ විසින් අනුමත කරනු ලැබුවා. මිල අඩුවීම් වුණොත් අඩුවීම් තුලින් ඇතිවෙන
The cabinet has approved a recommendation to implement a program where prices of fuel would be stabilized. If there are reductions in the price during a certain period, the monetary benefit would be allocated to a fund. If prices increase, instead of passing it on to the customers, we will utilize the fund to make relevant payments. Cabinet approval was also given to issue a skill license of sorts. This license would be given to those who have experience in unskilled labor apart from their education qualifications. This would be internationally accredited. We intend to release this license in a form of a smart card. Curfew has been imposed with effect from 6 p.m. today until 6 a.m. on Monday. However, curfew have been imposed in a way essential services would be able to operate. We would like to request the people to stay indoors and isolate themselves and aid us in this task. There is no hindrance to obtain essential items. The wholesale market in Fort will be in operation until 2 p.m. today. Thereafter, a special program will be held to sterilize the area surrounding the market at Fort. A gazette has been issued based on the advice of the Prime Minister to the Ministry of Finance to provide a tax-free package to any firm or company which produces any sort of product to combat COVID-19.
කවර නිෂ්පාදනයක් කළත් ඒ සෑම ආයතනයකටම සියලුම බදු වලින් නිදහස් පැකේජයක් ලබා දී තිබෙනවා.
Before we continue with the news broadcast, I would like to correct a mistake. Earlier in our bulletin, one of our news bars stated that India's death toll has reached 1,433. We sincerely apologize for the mistake, as this should be Iran and not India. Moving on, the Colombo stock market's S&P SL20 plunged near 12%, recording its biggest intraday fall. The benchmark of all-share price index fell over 6% due to the panic selling of the risky assets following the government's decision to impose a police curfew.
Trading at the stock market closed at 12 noon, an hour before the scheduled. The bourse said the move to facilitate its employees to return before the curfew. Before the market closed, its trading halted for the fifth day after the most liquid S&P SL20 index fell below 5%. The index ended 11.72% weaker at 1,947.42 points, while the benchmark all-share price index fell 6.22% to 4,571.63 points. Turnover was 420.8 million rupees. Dealers said that the bond market was inactive and the trading in Sri Lanka's forex market were also thin. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee weakened to 185.38/189.87 against the US dollar today, compared to yesterday's close of 184.12/188.
ලංකා ඉතිහාසයේ ප්‍රථම
It is true that the Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated to almost 189 rupees against the US dollar. The global economy is facing a major crisis at present. Back in 2013, the Sri Lankan rupee was 130 against the US dollar. In 2014, it was 132. But after the central bank bond scam took place, the rupee depreciated to 144 rupees against the US dollar. By 2016, the rupee further depreciated to 150 rupees. We had to pay 6 more rupees for every dollar. Then in 2018, the rupee further weakened to 182 rupees against the US dollar. Now in 2020, due to the global crisis, the rupee has weakened to 189 rupees against the US dollar.
දැන් 188 වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ ලෝක අරමුණ.
බන්දුල ගුණවර්ධන මහත්තයා කියන
Bandula Gunawardena is saying that the rupee has depreciated unlike any period before and that the reason for this is the bond scam. We wish to tell these people that the bond scam did not take place only during the administration of Ranil Wickremesinghe. This had taken place during the Rajapaksa era as well. According to the forensic audit report, this massive scam was committed as a daylight robbery and had caused losses to the country in a manner that it had contributed to the downfall of the central bank and other financial institutions. The Ranils and the Rajapaksas both have committed this scam. The people are facing the brunt of these actions today. The rupee has recorded its worst ever depreciation rate at present. While prices of crude oil in the global market have dropped, they don't pass on the benefits to the people as well. As a result of this, the people are suffering. But the thieves are neither arrested nor punished. Arjuna Mahendran is living a comfortable life in Singapore. People like Bandula Gunawardena who are in power can take action regarding these matters. There is no point of pointing fingers at one another. The government should enforce the law and arrest the perpetrators of the bond scam and rectify the current situation.
අන්දුවට කරන්න තියෙන ක්‍රම කාර්ය.
In more news on the impact of the COVID-19 on the economy, the Fitch Ratings in its latest quarterly global economic outlook said that the coronavirus crisis is crushing the global GDP growth.
Fitch expects global growth to fall to 1.3% in 2020 from 2.7% in 2019, which would be weaker than global downturns in the early 1990s and in 2001. The delay impact of supply chain distributions and lower Chinese demand on the rest of the world will continue to be felt profoundly for some time, particularly in the rest of Asia and the Eurozone. The interruption to economic activity seen in China and now in Italy are on a scale and speed rarely seen other than in few periods of military conflict, natural disaster or financial crisis. The baseline global economic forecast has been aggressively lowered. Even though they expect a recovery in China from 2020, Chinese growth is expected to fall just 3.7% for the year as a whole, down from 6.1% in 2019. They forecast Italian GDP to fall by 2% this year and Spanish GDP by almost 1%. The baseline forecast for US growth is 1% in 2020 compared with a pre-virus outlook of 2%, and GDP is expected to fall by 0.5% or 2% annualized in 2020.
A joint statement was issued by the bishops of the Church of the Ceylon of the Diocese of Colombo and Kurunegala. Leader of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Sajid Premadasa, convened a media briefing this morning.
After we finished preparing the nomination list of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya on Wednesday, we suspended all activities at our head office and decided to close the office. We would not hold any more media briefings either. This media briefing would be the last one until further notice. The Samagi Jana Balawegaya was the first political party to temporarily suspend all political activities due to the ongoing health crisis in the country. Singapore as a nation was successful in curbing the spread of COVID-19 as they took action early. We must strengthen the quarantine process in the country and enforce more rules and regulations. Medical checkups for COVID-19 should also be made available in more hospitals. I remember I proposed in Parliament that face masks of international standards should be imported to Sri Lanka and be distributed to our citizens. Even at that point, the government was of the stance that elections will be held. The government failed to make this decision. However, I thank the National Elections Commission for having the backbone to take this decision. Do not gamble with the lives of the general public. We are now experiencing a political shutdown in the country. I propose everyone to shut down all politics as well.
පොදු නාරකයක් තිබුණා රටදැය වෙනුවෙන් මිනිස්සු වෙනුවෙන් මිනිස් ජීවිත වෙනුවෙන් පිරිසිදු තීන්දුවක් ගන්න. මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ජීවිත දේශපාලන සූදුවක් කරගන්නට. අපි දැන් දේශපාලන
Minister S.M. Chandrasena expressed the following views regarding the imposition of the island-wide curfew.
The behavior of certain individuals has inconvenienced everyone. This is why the President decided to impose curfew. We will continue to fight until the coronavirus is completely eradicated. Every decision that was taken was for the benefit of the people. Therefore, we would like to sincerely request everyone to support the decision taken by the government and follow all instructions. We thank the NEC for postponing the general election. We did not at any instance force the NEC to go ahead with the election. The NEC will notify the new date on when the election could be held. We will form a new government and rebuild our country's economy by taking swift and timely decisions. The NEC has come to a decision based on the directives of the health sector. It is not a personal decision taken by them. The SLFP stance is that we should tend to the people without questioning regarding the election.
Leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, arrived at the Siddhikota party headquarters today.
Ranil Wickremesinghe and Party General Secretary Akila Viraj Kariwasam from time to time met several provincial level representatives of the party. In the meantime, UNP General Secretary called on a media briefing. Curfew has been imposed today and tomorrow as well. And so, we request the government to allocate a certain amount of money for the common man, as there is a huge reduction in world oil prices. No other government has had such profits. If we were in power, we would have given the benefit to the people. I don't like to talk politics at this moment. We must face this issue as one nation, and we will provide our fullest support to the government. We tried many times, but we failed due to political differences. Today we met the chairman of the Election Commission, and it was discussed that if the politician goes house to house, they might become carriers of coronavirus.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Azra San. We would also like to thank Taraka Gabriel for interpreting the news broadcast for the differently abled. For you to keep a track on these stories and many more that's happening around the world, you can log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. Take very good care of yourself. God bless and good night.